Can you hear me as well?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Great, good to have you on this show, Melissa. I want to start with saying happy Sunday to you. Hope you're enjoying your day.
Very well, thank you.
Great. Well, it's quite an exciting one for me, and honestly, it appears like what I would say, not the usual thing we do, but it's a common reality for most of us in this background. And I know for people like you in this background, it's something that has already been in practice. And it's something I'm excited to know about what we have to share with us today about keeping next aspect.
Yeah,
Obviously, at a time like this is when uh, we've come to realize how important pets are in our day-to-day life, how it makes people, well, I wouldn't want to go into that, so I don't sound like a typical mental health professional here now, but I would even start by telling you about my own background. When I was growing up, we had a dog. So that dog, his name is Ego. Ego was more like a human being to us. He could literally do everything at home, where he might not cook for us, but he's such a friend. He's such a friend. He goes with us anywhere we want to go. He protects the family by making sure no one intrudes. He does quite a lot of things that I wouldn't be able to mention here, but it's such a very good journey. That growing up as a child, I saw that pet, and then it's for me what I always want to do, having a pet around me. And most intriguing is the one we are talking about today, uh, having a snake as a pet. So,
yeah.
would you want to tell us, Melissa, about your own background and how you got into having a snake?
So, in my background is that obviously I'm a mental health nurse. Yourself, James. I specialize in animal assisted therapy as my kind of like go to and future development in terms of nursing. And for me, I started actually getting into pet ownership, specifically reptiles, back about 16 years ago. So I've always been fascinated with reptiles and subsequently snakes as part of that. And about 16 years ago, I was given my first ever pet reptile, and it's kind of really grown from there. And now I have everything from geckos to snakes. I
Oh,
mean, snakes are really absolutely fantastic creatures. They can feel, you can appear quite scared by them, but ultimately they're just as scared as you are of them.
great. Yeah. Do you want to talk about of course, owning it in this part of the world wouldn't be much of a big deal, but do you want to talk about some of the things that people think that are, well, what you think are some misconceptions that people hold in today's world about having snake as a pet?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that snakes will just bite you, they'll just chase you. They also seem to think that they're very slimy. They tend to think that the scales of a snake are going to feel very slimy and very unpleasant. Ultimately, snakes aren't solely aggressive. They are very much quite placid creatures, really. And in terms of fear, they'll only defend themselves if they absolutely have to as a last resort. So a
Yeah,
lot
so
of the
that's
snakes,
to say, sorry for cutting you short. So it's not always about them
no,
going about looking for who they could bite or hurt. So it's
yeah,
more of a defense when they were triggered to that point.
yeah. Typically, when they're cornered, stepped on, these are the sorts of incidents that result in a bite from a snake. And even in some cases, it doesn't result in a bite being stepped on. It results in the snake going, "Oh, what's happened?" and then running off.
Okay. Well, from my personal experience, I would say for most of the time that someone I know got bitten by a snake, it was always maybe they stepped on the snake.
Yeah,
So I believe that the snake biting and running off was just like a defense, which like an instinct, which is for every living thing could have. So I totally agree with you. And I've never seen a snake running towards someone or just seeing someone and then chasing about to, oh, I want to bite you, that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. So I totally agree with that, Melissa, from my personal experience. So um, there are a lot of snakes which I know, and I've seen some, not really like, but some really quite large,
Yeah.
and some, really in the smaller size. And I'm just thinking, for someone who would want to be a starter, like to start keeping snakes as pets, um, what would be would you have any recommendations on what would be, what they could go
Yeah.
for?
Yeah. I mean, there are about three species of snake that are absolutely fantastic for any beginner. You've got your ball pythons, you've got
Okay.
corn snakes, and you've also got hognoses, Western hognose. These are all really brilliant, fantastic starter snakes, really, for anybody who wanted to start here in the UK. They're really easily accessible, they're not very expensive, and they're very hardy. So, in terms of keeping, it's going to be easier for you to make mistakes with and know that you're not harming the snake in the long term.
These same species you're talking about, Melissa, are there also what are obtainable in some other places apart from the UK? Because I know that there are diverse of species that someone could keep. But can there be gotten if someone from America or in Africa
Yeah, yeah.
or
You can get these pretty much globally. So there is a global breeding kind of network really with these species, and you can pretty much acquire one wherever you are. And it's important to know really what it is that you're getting, because a lot of the other species I haven't mentioned are much harder to look after. They're more things that you're going to have difficulty getting hold of, or you're going to have difficulty keeping wherever you are.
yeah, what species are there, please, if you don't mind mentioning?
So you're looking more at your emerald tree boas, you're looking more into anacondas, into species similar to, your elephant trunk snakes. These are all very hard species to keep. But the thing I'm going to really highlight is venomous snakes. So large venomous species that have a high toxin rate, they are going to be the hardest species to keep. So we're talking things like cobras. We are talking things like vipers and,
Yeah. So I
those sorts
think
of species.
that would require some level of professionalism to be able to keep them, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a lot of countries now, you have to have a license to own those sorts of snakes, specifically venomous snakes, because they're deemed as dangerous wild animals and they can be used as a weapon.
Yeah.
So, in many countries, you now actually have to have appropriate training to keep them. You have to
Okay.
prove that you have a safe
The
environment to keep these
skills.
snakes, and you have to prove that you have the skills to handle them. Yeah.
All right. So just like you've mentioned some that you said the venomous, sorry. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah, venomous, yeah. So that suggests that there are some that are not venomous, right? And
So
there are some
some of the
okay.
species, there are actually less venomous species than there are non-venomous. And most of the
Really?
snakes that you'll encounter in the pet trade are non-venomous. And that's what makes them fantastic, because whilst they may bite, that is a
Okay.
possibility with any animal. They may bite. They also have good temperaments, a lot of these species that are beginner pets.
Okay.
And that's what makes them ideal for the pet trade, is that they've got a good docile nature that can be easily handled and tamed. So we tend to
Sorry, just that I'm going to cut you short here. You mentioned that you have less venomous snakes. Is it like a global figure, or maybe in the UK or Europe, or do you
no,
mean that?
globally There are
Okay.
less venomous species of snake than there are non-venomous.
All right. So less venomous. Wow. Well, I know of some like that I've seen physically, like the green snakes, and I've also seen some species of python that when I did some programs, I've held them physically, and I didn't even care about biting. All they could do is try to reg around you on a crawl on
Yeah.
your body, and then you just go off from there. So I have seen some, and I've also seen some that were venomous, but I didn't know that this is what the statistics is like. That we even have less of those that could really hurt.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
great.
mean, in Africa alone,
Okay.
66% of the snake species in Africa are non-venomous. Only
Oh,
30, only 34% of them are venomous in Africa alone.
oh, great. So, and I believe that Africa might probably have more snakes, than some other part of the world. And if this population are less venomous, so it sounds like it's a safe adventure, I believe. Yeah, if someone wants to
It's
do that.
safer than most people presume, yes.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Um, So, because for someone who is starting might not be able to know what this space could be like, how best to keep them. So, do you want to talk about what it will take, like to keep them, what someone needs to get, and how they could be fed properly?
Yeah. So, in terms of care, a lot of these species are going to need a minimum of 4 foot 2 by 2 tank. They're going to need basically a wooden enclosure with a glass front to ensure that you keep the humidity in and the temperature in the tank. You're going to need to ensure that you've got UVB lighting. So you're going to need to make sure you've also got heat lights as well. These are just basically the basics, really, for maintaining the environment that the snake's going to live in.
All right,
If
so just to cut you short, you talked about the light. You said
Yeah.
UVB light. So,
Yes.
was that specific for them, or why?
No. So any reptile that you would keep, you would need to ensure that you're providing it with the same light source, a similar sort of light source to what it would get naturally.
Yeah,
So every animal that goes out in the sun, including ourselves, we encounter UVA, UVB, and UVC rays. And what we're ensuring is that we're providing the most important one, which is UVB, to the animals that we're keeping. Typically, these animals, dependent on what species you go for, will need anything from 2 to 15% UVB. And
okay,
you can get some that require higher again, but these are the most common, is between 2 and 15.
okay. Yeah, that's lovely. Now talking about feeding, please. Yeah, because I know
So
that most of the ones we have always seen them, for hunting for themselves and fending for themselves. How best could we be able to take care of their feeding if we have to keep them in our own space that we chose for them?
yeah, I mean, typically, if you're feeding them in the UK, the US, you're typically going to feed frozen thawed rats or mice.
Okay.
And if you're holding or keeping larger species, then you're probably going to look into rabbits, piglets, that sort of thing. But typically, it's going to be frozen thawed mice and rats. That you can feed live, but I would not recommend it. The way you have to think of it is you're putting a mouse or a rat in an enclosed environment with a predator. What it's going to do is it's going to go, I'm prey. I'm going to go on the defense. If it's
Okay.
sat there not bothering about me, I'm going to attack it. Then you have the situation where your snake has been attacked by the food that it's supposed to eat, and you've got a big vet's bill on your hand.
Oh, right. Okay, so you've mentioned where it can be possibly gotten for them and all that. Yeah, that's quite
Yeah.
sound. Um, I'm just thinking. So apart from that, because they might require some level of healthcare as well, they might also need. Um, I don't know if they get medicines. I don't know if they fall sick. I've not seen one. I'm going to have one maybe
Yeah.
after this interview. But I'm just wondering, what if they feel unwell? How would be able to look after them in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, some of the most common problems you're going to come across keeping any species of snake is you're going to encounter respiratory problems. You're going
Oh,
to encounter things like scale rot, and you're going to encounter parasites, basically mites, worms, that sort of thing.
okay.
Typically, you're going to need to ensure that your environment's clean. And the best way to do that when you first get a snake is to quarantine it. And that's no substrate, just kitchen roll. And you're daily changing it. And you're going to make sure that you can monitor that animal for at least the first 3 weeks, just to make sure that it's not brought anything in and that you're ensuring that it's healthy.
Yeah, and that
Once,
would be part of the quarantine, I believe.
yeah, your quarantine period of about 3 weeks. That ensures that there's nothing infectious going on with the animal that you've brought in. What you can do though, if you have a medical emergency, so you suspect that it's got scale rot, you suspect it's got a respiratory infection, or it hasn't shed properly, and
Yeah,
you've got an issue that you don't feel you can resolve as a keeper, you can look for an exotic vet. Now, exotic vets are not very easy to find. They are
okay.
very hard and very expensive. So most keepers will try to make sure that their husbandry is correct for the snake before they
Okay.
get it, to ensure that they're not going to encounter these issues, that a lot of them are down to husbandry issues.
All right.
So
Great. Yeah. Well, I think just like you said, it sounds like it might be rare, for them, falling sick and all that. So, I don't believe it to be like quite a common thing for them. But please, at least we also suggested what we can do if we come to such eventuality. So, because I know that now, for most people who might be watching this video, it might be their first time of hearing that someone could keep snake as a pet. And I know that there are so many people too who are already in this, who are already having fun, having snacks as pets. So I'm just thinking, you're of course you've been into this for 16 years. So I'm just wondering, what do you think are the myths or what public perception of keeping snake as a pet is like?
I mean, for me, it's been amazing. The interaction that you have with an animal that most aren't very bright, they don't believe that they've got much in the way of a character. When you own a snake, you are what far more of an intimate level than what you would naturally see in the wild. When you see them and watch them in the wild, you're maybe interacting with them maybe 10, 15 minutes tops. But when you have that animal in your home and you're watching it at every point in the day. You
Yeah,
may encounter it when it's moving from point A to point B. You may get the odd moment where it's climbing a branch, and then you realize that actually it doesn't normally climb and it falls off.
yeah,
But that was something you wouldn't otherwise see in the wild. You wouldn't have seen the mistakes they made.
yeah.
But you also see the reaction of the individual animal that you're caring for. I can use mine as an example. He fell off a log one day and he literally sat there for a minute, wondering what had happened, before suddenly going, "Oh, I didn't like that," and shot back into his little house.
Yeah, it would be like, oh, what just happened? Like,
Yeah, completely puzzled. And it's the look of, how did I get down here?
yeah.
But these are the sorts of
Yeah, we
interactions
just get up
people
and
wouldn't
dust yourself
otherwise
and
have.
yeah. That's a fun part of them that we'll never get to see, when they're in the wild. Yeah, we'll never even get to see, oh, this are another side of the snakes. Yeah. Obviously, For us, okay, my dad told us an experience he had with some snakes. Especially it's a python species.
Mhm.
So when they had my elder brother, so they come out at some point. He was laid on the bed, so they came out. They came into the room and just for them to check on the baby, and then they saw that the baby has been wrapped, not like just by the snake has gone round the baby, just roll called up close to the snake, so close to the baby, and we're just like, oh, can see that this is on a friendly note. They were just
Yeah.
like, oh, they were just appreciating the baby. You could see that the snake was not even there to hurt. But this is the part of the thing that people don't people don't talk about. Sorry for my stumbling. People don't talk
It's
about
okay.
this. People don't even project snakes in this light. But when my dad just got in there, all they could just do was just to tap the snake, and then it crawled off, and then they took our elder brother while he was a baby. So it was something really, really fun for us. So can you tell us about your own fun stories? What has it been like? And um, what
I
has it
can
been like in your own area? Your experiences with the snake.
I have to say, owning a snake has definitely been an experience. I mean, my boy, he's funny. A lot of the time you won't see him move very much, but you can get him out whenever you want. He's very relaxed, very calm. I mean, one day I opened up the front of his tank. He decided he wanted to investigate what was going on. And as he's come out the front, he's realized he's gone too far and he's just fallen out the front of his tank.
Oh,
Just know they don't have as much depth perception as, say,
yeah,
we do, or no, not as much awareness of where they are. So you end up with these amusing situations where Snake's fallen off of something because he's not realized
yeah,
he can't
yeah,
hold on, or you end up with this little head just poking out of a hole and you don't think the rest of the body's in there, and then you realize, how did he fit in a small hole like that?
yeah, yeah.
And
Great.
they can be absolute characters, they really can. And the amount of people who have touched him wondering what he feels like, and he
Yeah.
just doesn't mind. You know,
Oh,
I've sat before playing video games with him wrapped up in my blankets, all snuggled up in front of me, just sat on my lap. And
oh,
he's never once, worried about where I am, what's going on. He's just quite
oh,
happy to sit there and enjoy what's going on in front of him.
oh, that's lovely. Well, and I would say it is it's a lovely thing, and I'm honestly gonna get one. I promise you. I'm going to show you what I've done so far about getting one next week. And in the next 2 weeks, I'll probably must have one, which I can show you physically that I've got one. Yeah, it's going to be a good experience. And I'm just thinking, uh, apart from the fun that comes with it, has there been anything like challenging about having a snake? Do you think for your
uh,
own side?
yeah, I mean, one of the challenges can be is snakes do go on hunger strikes. So
Okay.
they will go for a period where they just decide, actually, I don't want any food. Doesn't matter what you offer me, how often you offer it me, I'm just not interested.
Could
And
it be that is it they're angry or they're upset with
no,
anything else?
you never know. It could be that there's been a slight change in the environment. It could have been anything to upset them slightly, and they'll just stop eating. Now, the difficulty comes when they start to lose weight, and you can see that they're losing weight and they're still not eating. Those are some of those situations where you're going to need to call your vet. And that can be the frustration of owning them, is that you sometimes don't even know what's gone wrong. And the snake's decided, the only way I'm going to tell you this is I'm not accepting my food. And
Yeah,
it can be frustrating as an owner, knowing that
definitely.
something's upset it, something's gone wrong, and they're not eating. and you can see the change in them as they continue not to eat. But the other good part is that husbandry and keeping of snakes has improved so much over 16 years. Just in the time I've kept them, they've changed significantly in terms of how you keep them. And now you have less and less situations where people are going to their vet and saying, my snake's not eaten in 3 months. What do I do? And it's all down to the environment that we're keeping them in. It's much more like their natural environment, and therefore they are much more likely to eat as if they were wild.
Okay. But if eventually, if that episode of having hunger strike wanes off, they're able to have proper food, blend properly, and relate well with the owner.
So, like I said, I assist feed mine. If he goes on hunger strike for too long a period, you can assist feed them. I would not recommend that for beginners to do, and I wouldn't recommend it if you don't know how to, because you can actually hurt your snake in doing it incorrectly.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of experience of doing it. I've been taught and shown how to by my vet, and that has enabled me to be able to do it for my snake going forwards. But always contact your vet if you're ever concerned about anything. Really is important that you have an exotic vet on your phone available to you who knows about snakes, who knows about reptiles as an exotic, so that you have that reassurance as an owner that if anything goes wrong and you're not sure, just pick up the phone and call your exotic vet and just say, look, this is my situation. What can I do? Is there anything I can change to improve it? Is there anything I can do to help my snake start eating again? And a lot of the time, they'll give you that advice free over the phone. If they believe that they need to see it, then obviously you've got an expensive vet bill on your hand. But ultimately, the snake's health and welfare also comes above your finances in some cases.
Okay. Just before your final thoughts, I'm going to ask you if what's the name of your snake?
My snake's called Ezio.
Okay, sorry. So if Ezio crawls into a room where we have 6 ladies who touched Ezio, would he be able to know when you did touch him? Would he be able to know, this is my owner?
So snakes have an amazing ability to smell and feel by taste.
Okay.
So they have an amazing tongue. It picks up, it's why they have a forked tongue. They put it out, it picks up all the particles in the air around them. They take it back, they put it into a little pouch at the top of their head called the Jacobson organ, and that tells them all the information they need to know.
Wow.
Anybody could touch that snake, but he would know me based on my scent, just from putting his tongue out, giving it a flick in the air, picking up those particles and sending it to his brain. So doesn't matter who touches him, he'll know
quite
it's me.
intriguing to know that. I feel like I should take some courses in reptiles, in knowing about reptiles. And it's quite lovely. So just before I'm just gonna ask you, what would be your final thoughts to someone who, just like I and some other persons, just like me and some other persons who would want to start keeping snakes? What would be your final tips for us, the prospective snake owners?
So my final tips would be research. I've seen people who've gone out and just bought themselves a snake, or they've decided that they want to keep reptiles of any variety. I find a lot of them have gone to their local pet store. They've just gone, oh, I want one of those. They've bought what the reptile shops recommended. They've gone home, set it up, and gone back and got the animal the next day. Research and setup is my big tip. There are loads of sites on there that will basically talk to you about how to set up, what the temperatures are like, what you need to do. My recommendation is look for ones that are current and relevant. If they've been updated in the last 6 months, you've probably got a good site on your hand, because they are keeping up with the latest animal care for your species. If it's over a year old, the chances are it's not. If it asks for heat mats and heat plates, then the chances are you've not got a very good site on your hands. Ensure that the information you're getting is current and relevant. And the only way you can do that is through research, really, and just keep looking and gaining bits and pieces from lots of different sites, because that's the only way really that you're gonna get the best information for the care of your animal that you want.
Okay. Well, I've already missed to ask you, but I just wanted to know, just like someone who is wanting to keep a snake, what would the person be having in his mind about the life expectancy of a snake as a pet?
So it's really dependent on the snake species that you get.
Okay.
So an example would be for a ball python, you're looking anywhere from 20 to 30 years.
All right.
But if you were looking for a hognose, for example, a hognose may only live 10 to 15 years. Okay. So it really is species dependent. And typically, the smaller the variety, the smaller the life expectancy. But that doesn't always correlate.
Oh, thank you so much, Melissa. And honestly, this is quite loaded with some information, with much information and motivation. So I believe for me, it's something I would want to do. Knowing that snakes are not as harmful as we thought, and knowing that they could be friendly, they could be our friends, we could keep them and look after them, and they give us much fun to be with, is something I'm going to do. And just as you've encouraged, I'll do my research, find out what would work best for me, and I believe it's going to be quite helpful for some other people who are going to watch this interaction. And for your little boy, how I wish I could be able to send some treats to him. Send my regards to your pet, and I'm really grateful for this time. Thank you so much for coming, Melissa.
Not a problem.
See you soon. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, you
Bye.
take care. Yeah, okay, yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah.